Hi and welcome to a Render Studios After Effects tutorial. Being as this is our first tutorial, I've decided to keep it fairly simple. So I'll show you what we're going to create today then. We'll go ahead and make a new project and a new composition. I've already got it set as Full HD, which is 1920 by 1080. 10 seconds in length is fine. Hit OK. In the downloads section for this tutorial I've provided a resources folder, and within that we've got various cloud images which I've cut out of different photographs online in Photoshop and made readily available to blend into one another and composite finally. So we'll open up these. We'll start by inserting the largest image, which we'll use as our background, which is the clouds big file. And we'll reduce the size until it fits the comp nicely. And for this I'm just going to do a simple scale up to give the impression that we're flying through the sky. So I've hit a keyframe there, as you can see at the start on the scale. Press S to get your scale up. Got about 7 seconds, and then type in 100. As you can see there, it's just scaling up or giving the impression that we are getting closer to the end. Next we'll enter the cloud small file, and this is where we'll start turning the remaining files into 3D images, which will resultantly create a sense of parallax, as if we are flying through 3D space, with different clouds being closer towards us and others being farther away. Increases their realism and the effect of 3D. So we'll hit the stopwatch on position, and if you don't know how to get that, you press P to get your position option up. Scroll to the start, and 0 is fine. We're going to be adjusting Z space basically, and if you can't see that image, it's actually quite big, so we'll hit scale, S for scale, and scale it down to about 47. And bring up P again for position. Position it wherever you want, but it's pretty much it's a corner of some cloud, so stick it in the bottom right. And we'll scroll to about 2.5 seconds and drag the cursor back on the Z space option to about -2000. Did I put minus in? -2000. We'll have a quick look at that. So basically what that's doing is creating the impression that this small cloud is closer towards us than the larger background clouds. Again, improving the sense of three-dimensional space. And we'll just duplicate that and maybe rotate it and put it in the opposite top corner. Keyframes you might want to hit the stopwatch to remove the position, as we're going to be entering new position keyframes now. Select it again, then move to about 3.5. It's important to differentiate your keyframes to again produce a larger scope of three-dimensional space, many more clouds passing at different times. So we'll scroll that back to until it passes us. There we go. Have another quick look. There we go. Move on to the next one. Small clouds number 1. Do the same. Hit the cube to turn into a 3D layer. And if you can't find that, just select the toggle switches button at the bottom. Scroll back to the start and hit position keyframe. Do the same thing, drag Z space back until this passes you. All the way. Actually looks as though we pass right through the middle of this cloud, which is a nice effect. Right then. Move on to the next one, small clouds number 2. And repeat. Hit the 3D switch, enter a position keyframe. Put this one in the top right hand corner. About the 5-second mark. And again, minus 2000, I know, a bit more. Scroll back until it passes you. There we go. And the next one, number 3. It was this. We'll put this in the, that's a huge image, so I'll just scale that down. Hit S to bring up the scale option. Put that in the bottom left. Hit P again. Go to the end, about 6 seconds, and scroll that all the way back. Starting to come together quite nicely now. Now we'll add the final cloud image, number 4. Another really large image. We'll put this to the right of the composition. Turn it to a 3D layer. Hit P for position. Put an ending keyframe on about 7 seconds. And again scroll all the way back. Might be a bit too much. Been moving too fast. There we go. It's important to keep checking what you've done thus far, as you don't want some clouds which at the beginning of the animation appear to be behind certain clouds, yet then as you press play and continue move quicker than the clouds in front of them, as that would ruin the 3-dimensional effect that we're trying to create. And I think we'll add just one more duplicate, cloud number 4, and we'll spin it around. Just press scale, get rid of the little paperclip there which constrains your proportions, and put a minus along the x-axis of the scale. And what that's done is just mirror it. It's important to make sure all the clouds are at least slightly different. Remove the position keyframes and add new ones. Go right to the end. And scroll back until it's no longer seen. There, that should be okay. Okay. As you're probably noticing, there's like a blue area that I've purposely left blank, as that's where our text is going to occur. So the cloud sequence is now complete, so we'll pre-compose all of them. You want to keep your project quite neat, so select all of the layers within this composition and go to Layer, Pre-compose. Name this Clouds, hit OK. So now we'll move on to the next stage of this tutorial, which is the creation of the text. So right click in the composition window here and select text. And as you can see, the cursor's appeared right in the center of this composition. So I'm just going to enter Render Studios. Central alignment in the paragraph section. Retains the text in the center of the comp. I'm using a font called Birth of a Hero. You might have to download that from the very useful website dafont.com. As we're keeping this title sequence fairly simplistic, I want the text to appear rather subtle, but I don't just want a simple opacity fade in, so we'll be using an effect which consists of track mats. So we'll create a new solid. Don't matter what size that is, I've chosen black, that's fine. Then we'll go into the effects panel and type in fractal noise. There it is, double click that. Change the fractal type to cloudy and click invert. There's a bit more contrast going on there. Now select the keyframe on contrast and make that quite high. There we go. Some nice contrast there. And go to about 3 seconds and enter 0. Now what you want to do now is hit the toggle switch section, brings up the track matte option. Then on the text layer, scroll down to Luma Matte. Just zoom in a bit here. As you can see now, when it fades out, it's not faded out quite enough, so bring that up, right up, there we go. As you can see, it's using the data from the fractal noise solid and using that as a basis to fade in. As I said, slightly more interesting than just a simple fade in. Text looking quite small though, so just select that, hit character and 70. And it's not really standing out much, so we'll put just a simple drop shadow on there. Type in drop in the effects panel and drag that over to the text layer. That's fine. You might want to move your text further along and the keyframes as well. You don't want it to appear immediately. So if you just drag this over, it'll make it start a bit later in the sequence. And we'll now move on to one of the final aspects, which is including lens flares. Now for all of my lens flares I use a package from Andrew Kramer's site Video Copilot, which is called Optical Flares. Now if you don't have that, well, it's not a necessity to include a lens flare, it just makes whatever you're doing look a bit nicer, and it is a bit of a trend nowadays, so it's always good to keep up with the times. But I think After Effects does include a default lens flare in the simulation pack. Right, somewhere in there, type in lens flare and it comes up. There it is, generate lens flare. Not very nice, but if you haven't got optical flares, what can you do? So what I usually do is create a solid, call it lens flare, Then go to Effect, scroll down to Video Copilot, Optical Flares, Options. And I don't build my own, I just use one of the presets created. I can't remember what I chose now. It's in the Pro Presets package, yeah, there. Antique Digital. And a blue lens flare won't really work with this scene, it's already quite blue, so we'll change it to a yellowy tone. Hit OK, and we'll boost up a couple of these elements. Multi-iris. Make it a bit bigger, a bit more visible. We'll see how this looks. Change the render mode to on transparent, and change the layer mode to add. Now you might think that's a bit bright, but if we turn down the brightness to about 40, it's a bit more tolerable. Move it to the top left. Now you can move the center position, which is the other little crosshair you get. Move that there. And it doesn't seem very yellow, so we'll go back into options and we'll change the color of the horizontal streaks. Which is this one here. Go into color. Again, give it a nice yellow. It's a bit better. And that's fine as it is in the top corner. You can maybe even add a lens flare on the text as well to create another solid. Call it text flare. Again, Video Copilot, Optical Flares, hit Options. We just want a simple horizontal blue streak, I think now, so we'll use, which has a nice streak. Nope. The Mighty. That's good enough. Now we don't want any glow, because that just look pretty ridiculous on text, so we'll just hide all of the glow settings. And all these iris things, we don't want any of them. Quite a few of them, unfortunately. Keep that one on. Get rid of Spike Ball and Glint. That should be okay. I'll make it slightly more white. There we go. And again, change the render mode to on transparent. And then the mode to add, which just helps the flare blend in that little bit more. Now we need to change the brightness to 50, the scale to 30. Zoom in a little bit. Just move this crosshair and put it under the S. Now if things are starting to get a little bit difficult to see, there's not much contrast between the text and the background, I think we're best put some color correction in there now. So we'll go to Layer, New Adjustment Layer. I'm just going to put a simple curves adjustment on here. So type in curves and drag that onto your adjustment layer. And this, select the center of it and just drag it down a bit. And there you go. Creates more contrast and makes the text that slight bit more legible. Hit enter and just call it color correction. as you can see, as text lens flare. It needs to fade in to correspond with the text. So we'll select the text flare and hit T, which brings up opacity. Select the stopwatch and change that to 0. And then scroll on, and when you find a suitable place, stop it there and bring it back up to 100. Or maybe about 70. Don't want it to be too distracting. Maybe move this up here. That's what my original one did. And we'll tone it down a bit. One final thing we can do is on the text layer, hit the little arrow here and click on Animate Tracking. Basically we're going to do a typical effect that you see in movie credits where the words usually spread out. This is called tracking, and it's quite simple to do, so just move this up so we can see what we're doing. Go to the start and click on tracking amount, leave it at 0. Go to about the end, which is 7 seconds. 20 should be okay. As you can see there, the text is just spreading out. And one final thing we can do to this large lens flare in the top left is give it a bit of flicker. We don't want it to remain still and lifeless, so we'll hold Alt and click on Amount, and then we'll type in a wiggle expression, which basically animates the brightness so it's flickering on and off on a constant loop. So we type in wiggle there and open brackets, 8,160, close brackets, just click anywhere to close that. As you can see now, it's just flickering that little bit. Just gives it that extra bit of detail that improves the overall sequence. And obviously now you can refine it so much. It's probably looking different to my original. You can add more clouds, you can add flashes and change the colour correction. So there's plenty of stuff you can do with it. You can go mental with lens flares if you want. But that's about it. Thanks for watching. I hope you can do at least something with this technique. Thank you.